The series starts with a girl named Zizi leaving a supermarket. By chance, she spots a very handsome guy named Larange and can't take her eyes off him because of how good-looking he is. The next day, we see Zizi getting ready for her first day of the new school year. She meets up with her friend Gia so they can go to school together. Zizi tells Gia that she's done some research on all the guys at their school and found out that 2 new students have joined. These 2 guys are said to be really smart and good-looking, and their names are Larange and Goran. While the 2 girls are walking to school, Zizi accidentally drops her wallet without noticing. Coincidentally, Larange happens to be walking behind her and picks it up. When he gets to school, he goes to the broadcast room with his friend Goran to announce that they've found the wallet. As soon as Zizi hears her name over the loudspeaker, she rushes to the broadcast room with Gia to get her wallet. She finds out that Larange and Goran are the ones who found it. Of course, the 2 girls are over the moon because the most handsome guys in school are the ones who returned the wallet. They wave at them from a distance, excited and happy. The problem, though, is that the girls don't know which one is Larange and which one is Goran. They end up calling each guy by the other's name. Zizi tells Gia that she saw Larange before when she was leaving the supermarket, and ever since then, she hasn't been able to stop thinking about him. Later, their homeroom teacher announces that all the students will be attending a military training camp. The next day, they arrive at the camp, and a military officer stands in front of them, giving them instructions. Gia breaks the rules, so the officer decides to punish her. Goran can't stop laughing at her, so the officer punishes him too, making them both do jumps until their legs hurt. After the training, Zizi goes to the infirmary to get some ointment for Gia's injuries. There she notices that the infirmary is air-conditioned, unlike their dorm, so she forgets why she came and ends up falling asleep on the bed. At night, Zizi returns to her dorm, annoyed because phones and suites are banned during the training period. When it's time for inspection, Zizi hides her phone, and the inspector's about to find it. But Gia decides to sacrifice herself for her friend and shows the inspector her own suites so they don't notice Zizi's phone. At the same time, we see the inspector searching the boys' rooms. Goran hands his phone to Larange and asks him to hide it quickly. Larange runs out and uses the phone just before the inspector sees him. By chance, he finds Zizi hiding under the stairs, talking on her phone. She's so shocked to see him sitting next to her that she can't speak. When they're sure the inspectors have left the dorm, they walk back together. The whole time, Zizi keeps calling him Goran, and he stays quiet, not correcting her to avoid embarrassing her. The next day, Zizi finds out his real name is Larange, and of course, she's embarrassed. That night, Zizi and Gia are on patrol duty at the camp. Both of them are scared because it's dark and quiet. Gia leaves Zizi alone for a moment to go get a flashlight. Coincidentally, Larange and his friend are also on patrol duty. Goran is standing alone, waiting to get a flashlight, so Zizi decides to stand next to Larange until Gia comes back. Zizi apologizes to Larange for getting his name wrong, but he doesn't seem to care and acts cold toward her. This upsets Zizi because she's trying to start a conversation with him, but he's not giving her a chance. She asks him to be a little kinder to her since they're classmates after all. After a while, Gia and Goran return to continue their patrol duty. At that moment, they run into their classmate Fang, who brings them some food. We learn that Fang is a close friend of Larange and Goran. After that, they all sit together and have dinner. Suddenly, they hear the inspector coming, so they all quickly run away. The next day, the military training ends, and they return to school as usual. On that day, a new teacher named Mr. Lin joins their class. He tells the students to think of him as a friend and to come to him with any problems they face at school. After class, Zizi confides in Gia that she's having a hard time getting close to Larange because he's not giving her any chances. Gia comes up with an idea and goes to ask Goran about the type of girl Larange likes. Goran says he doesn't know but promises to ask him. Later, Larange sits with them, and Goran asks him about his ideal type. Larange says he likes girls with big eyes, soft hair, who love to run and eat a lot. When Zizi hears this, she's thrilled because she fits all those descriptions. The next day, she sits next to him on the bus and tells him she's an active girl with soft hair and big eyes, just like he described. Larange stays quiet, then shows her a picture of his dog on his phone and says he was actually describing his dog. Zizi is mortified and wishes the ground would swallow her up. One day, Zizi is riding the bus home when she sees an older man harassing a woman. Zizi confronts him and tells him to leave the woman alone. The man accuses her of lying and says he didn't touch the woman. Lorange steps in and tells the man he also saw him harassing the woman. The man gets off the bus, and Zizi is happy that Lorange supported her. She asks him where he got the courage to stand up to the man and why he wasn't scared. Zizi tells him that having him by her side made her feel safe, and she knew he'd defend her if the man tried anything. The next day in the advanced class, Lorange finds out from his friends that Zizi got the highest score on the English exam, even though she's in a regular class, not an advanced one. Lorange is embarrassed because he failed the English exam. The teachers even distribute Zizi's exam paper to the advanced classes as a learning example. Later, Lorange is sitting in the library studying from Zizi's notes when she joins him. She notices he doesn't understand a single word of English, so she tells him he's talented in other subjects like physics and chemistry and doesn't need to be as good as her in English. Later, Lorange finds out his mom is at the school to check on his exam results. The school tells her that her son is excelling in all subjects except English, and this might negatively affect his standing in the advanced classes. His mom gets upset and starts comparing Lorange to her other son, who's excelling in everything. She keeps putting Lorange down in front of the teachers, and he hears everything but stays silent, feeling hurt because his mom is never satisfied with him no matter what he does. Afterward, Lorange goes to apologize to his mom, but she yells at him, calling him a failure. He then goes to the English teacher to ask for help with some grammar rules he doesn't understand. Zizi walks in, and the teacher suggests that Zizi explain the rules to him. Zizi is surprised but agrees immediately and starts explaining everything in a simple way. They sit together for a long time, and during this, Mr. Lin walks in and suggests that Zizi become Lorange's private tutor. In return, Lorange can help her with the subject she's struggling with. Lorange refuses, but Zizi doesn't give up and keeps pressuring him all day to agree. When Lorange gets home, he finds his mom has hired a private tutor to help him with English. As usual, she belittles him in front of the tutor, so Lorange tells her he doesn't need a tutor because his classmate is helping him. He leaves the house and coincidentally sees Zizi eating at a restaurant. When she spots him, she invites him to sit with her until she finishes eating because she doesn't like eating alone. Lorange agrees and sits down to eat with her. At the end of the day, Lorange tells her he's willing to take English lessons from her and even brings her some food and sweets as payment for the lessons. The next day, Zizi is riding the bus home when she notices Lorange waiting for her at the bus stop. She's surprised and asks why he's there. He tells her he'll accompany her to school every day until her leg heals. Zizi is thrilled and secretly hopes her injury lasts longer, so he'll keep walking her to school. One day, Zizi is having lunch with her family when her dad mentions seeing a girl riding a bike behind her classmate on their way to school. He starts ranting about how the younger generation is spoiled and corrupted, telling Zizi never to act like that girl. Zizi is shocked because that girl is her, but she doesn't say anything. She leaves the table and goes to her room. The next day at school, the students are voting for who will play Cinderella in the upcoming school play. Zizi and another girl named Shi are the top candidates. Zizi wins by just one vote and finds out Lorange was the one who voted for her. She's confused but happy. Later, she asks Lorange to help her practice for the play, and he agrees on one condition. She has to get high grades this month. Zizi agrees and promises to focus on her studies. The next day, Lorange takes her to study, but they find the library closed. Instead, he takes her to his house. There, they run into Mr. Lin, who reveals that he's Lorange's uncle and lives with him since his parents are away. Lorange asks Zizi not to tell anyone at school about their family connection. The next day, Zizi and her friends gather at a classmate's house to practice for the play. They have a great time, and when Zizi goes to school the next day, she thanks Mr. Lin for everything he's done for Lorange. She tells him Lorange's grades have improved a lot since she started tutoring him, and Mr. Lin asks her to keep helping him. One day, Zizi gets her period unexpectedly at school and is too embarrassed to go home. She runs into Goran and asks him to take her home, but he says he's busy because he has a soccer match. Zizi feels awkward and starts walking alone until another classmate, Chen, offers to take her home on his bike. Chen is known for being handsome, and all the girls at school have a crush on him. The next day is the day of the school play. Chen is supposed to play the prince opposite Zizi's Cinderella, but they find out he got into a bike accident and is in the hospital. Zizi panics and asks Lorange to take on the role of the prince. He agrees and they perform together on stage, putting on a great show for the audience. The next day, Larange meets Zizi to go to the aquarium together. On the way, Mr. Lin sees them and immediately senses something is going on between them. He gives Larange some advice on how to treat girls respectfully and insists on giving him money to take Zizi out to dinner. Larange is embarrassed and refuses to take the money. At the aquarium, they have a great time together and even get special couple medals at the end of the day. The next day at school, the students find out they'll be traveling to another city to participate in a competition between schools. Zizi and Gia are excited about the trip, especially since Larange and Garan are coming too. However, the girls oversleep the next morning and miss the train with the rest of their classmates. They have to take a bus instead, which takes 7 hours. When they finally arrive at the hotel, Larange and Goran are waiting for them. They all check into their rooms, and Zizi is surprised to find out she's sharing a room with a girl from another school named Shishi. Shishi starts talking about how she's known Larange for a long time and has competed with him in many events. Zizi feels a pang of jealousy as Shishi keeps praising Larange's intelligence and talent all night. The next day after the competition, Shishi takes Zizi and her friends on a tour of the city. Shishi sticks close to Larange the whole time, and Zizi gets more and more annoyed. Eventually, she decides to leave the group and sits alone feeling upset. After a while, Larange comes over and sits next to her, saying he's bored and wants to take her on a private tour. Zizi agrees, and they ride the cable car together, then take a walk along the beach. They have a great time, and Zizi feels happy again. That night, as Zizi is heading back to her hotel room, she sees Shishi and Larange standing together. She starts to worry that something is going on between them, but Larange reassures her that he was just looking for her. He gives her something to keep her warm because the weather is cold. After he leaves, Shishi approaches Zizi and subtly hints that she knows Zizi has feelings for Larange. She tells Zizi not to give up on her feelings because it's clear Larange likes her too. The next day, they all head back home. On the train, they start talking about the supposed end of the world that's rumored to happen at midnight. Everyone is scared except Larange, who knows it's just a myth. When midnight hits, they all hold on to each other, terrified, but nothing happens. Larange notices how scared Zizi is and plays a song for her to calm her down. The next day, the whole group goes out to eat at a restaurant owned by Fang's grandmother. They notice 2 guys making fun of the food, and Fang takes them aside and gives them a lesson they'll never forget. The group is shocked to see Fang, who's usually calm and kind, act so fiercely. Fang explains that he used to be a troublemaker in school, but one day he saw his grandmother begging the school not to expel him, and he decided to change his ways. Later, Zizi finds out Larange is going on a New Year's vacation to the city where his family lives. She's sad he'll be away, but promises to call him every day. Larange says he'll look forward to her calls. During the vacation, Zizi helps her family prepare food and stays in constant contact with Larange. She's always excited to hear from him. At night, Zizi learns from her parents that they will spend their vacation at her grandmother's house. She becomes extremely happy because her grandmother's house is in the same city where Larange lives. Meanwhile, Larange overhears his family praising his younger brother. He gets upset because they always belittle him, even though he tries his best to please them. The next day, Zizi arrives at her grandmother's house. Her mother asks her to take her young cousin to buy some things from the supermarket. While there, she is surprised to see Larange. He offers to walk her home, and she agrees. On the way, all the villagers notice them together and become curious about who the young man walking with Zizi is. Zizi's father finds out that his daughter is walking with a stranger, so when Zizi arrives home with Larange, she is shocked to see her father waiting with a broomstick, ready to hit the young man with her, but as soon as he knows that he is the son of a big family and a respectable young man, he stays. Laurent welcomes him very much, and also he enters the house and insists that he has lunch with them. After lunch, Zizi goes for a walk with Laurent, and on the way, he tells her that he envies her for her family and the beautiful family atmosphere that she lives in because his family is traveling most of the time. And because of that, he lives with his uncle, and no one cares about him, and also he feels that they have no emotion towards him. All they care about is that he excels, and that's it. As for Grant, we know that his father and mother are doctors and are always busy with work, and they also decide to go to the hospital on New Year's Eve and leave him alone because they have urgent work. But Gia calls him before the countdown and shares the atmosphere of New Year's Eve with him so that he does not feel lonely. The next day, Zizi returns home, and at the same time, Gia's father asks his daughter to come with him to the house of the doctor who treats her grandmother to thank him for what he has done for her. So Gia goes with her father to that doctor's house, and as soon as the door opens, she is shocked. Of course, both of them are in a state of astonishment, and Gia never expected that the doctor treating her grandmother would be the father of Joran. After that, Joran enters his room and continues what he was doing on the computer. We see that as usual, he keeps editing Gia's pictures, putting stickers and strange things on her head and face to make her look funny. But suddenly, Gia enters to know exactly what he was doing on the computer, so Joran quickly covers her eyes so she won't see her picture. Here, Gia misunderstands him and thinks that he was watching inappropriate things. She sarcastically tells him that he is supposed to watch these things at night so that his parents are asleep. Of course, Joran is shocked by her words and tells her that he is not watching anything inappropriate, but she does not believe him. The next day, Joran finds out that his parents are traveling for a month. Of course, Joran gets very upset, but he does not show it. At night, Fang keeps calling Joran, but he does not answer. So he asks Gia to go check on him at his house. When Gia arrives at Joran's house, she finds him very sick with a high fever, and he is lying in bed, unable to get up. Quickly, Gia makes cold compresses for him and stays up next to him all night. After a while, Joran wakes up and is very happy that Gia was with him. Then Fang arrives and asks Joran to pack his things and come live with him at his house until his parents return from their trip, because he will not be reassured about him being alone. The next day, she catches a cold, which is common in this weather these days. After that, Laurent goes to spend the day with Fang and Joran, and he even sleeps over with them. He also brings medicine for his friend because he knows that he is sick. All night, Laurent keeps thinking about Zizi, and Joran also cannot stop thinking about Gia. The next day, all the students return to their schools. While the group is on their way back home, Gia stops them and tells them that she will go put something in the classroom for her classmate Chen to hint to him that she likes him. Joran goes with her, feeling very upset, but of course, he does not show his feelings in front of her. By mistake, Chen's books fall on the ground, so they both bend down to pick up the books together. At that moment, they find a travel form among his books. Gia immediately understands that he is traveling abroad without informing anyone. Here, Gia decides to confess her love to him because there is no time to waste anymore. She writes him a love letter but accidentally leaves it in Zizi's homework notebook. The problem here is that all the students' notebooks were collected for correction, and by chance, Laurent is reviewing something in the homework notebooks and finds the letter in Zizi's notebook. He gets very angry and misunderstands the situation, thinking that she wrote a love letter to another guy. He starts treating her coldly all day, and Zizi does not understand why he is treating her that way. During the physical training class, Laurent is the supervisor of Zizi's training, so he makes her train for a very long time until her body hurts. At this point, Zizi remembers seeing him holding the love letter and understands why he has been treating her coldly. On the way home, she explains to him that the letter was not hers at all, but belonged to her friend. The next day at school, Ashen tells Gia that he is traveling soon and gives her a ticket for the last performance that will be presented in the theater. Gia becomes very happy and she thinks that he gave her a ticket especially for her, but then she reacts that he distributed the tickets to all the students. So here she gets upset and feels that she is not special to him at all and that her love for him is one-sided. But Gia still decides to go and attend his show, and during the show, she sits next to Garan. He keeps looking at her, feeling sad because she didn't love him the way he loved her, but the most important thing for him is to see her happy with the person she loves. After the show, Goran encourages her to go and confess her feelings to Chen, so she excitedly tells him that she wrote him an important letter that she wants him to read when he gets home. He then says that she is very kind and considers her like his little sister. Of course, Gia is shocked by his words and takes the letter back from him, pretending that she wants to modify something in it. Gia then goes to sit alone, heartbroken, and Pierrot sits next to her, bringing her slippers because her feet were hurt by the heels she wore that day. After some time, they all go to bid farewell to Chen at the airport before he travels, and Gia gives him a lucky star, asking him to keep it and never lose it because it brings good luck to its owner. After a while, the exam results come out and they all score high marks, so they agree to travel together during the vacation. But as usual, Lorang's mother keeps yelling at him because his grades are lower than his brother's and forbids him from traveling. However, Professor Lin tells the mother that the exams were difficult for everyone and eventually convinces her to let him travel with his friends. The next day, the whole group travels together and has a great time, taking lots of pictures to keep these memories when they grow up. But the problem here is that they lose the money they had and don't know how they will manage the upcoming days without money. Zizai shows them a job offer from the music festival and suggests that they work there until they collect the amount they need, and they all agree on the idea. The next day they start working, and each of them has a different task from the other. At the end of the day, they get paid by the employer, but the money is not enough for the trip they planned. So they decide to attend the music festival and get discounted tickets from the employer in exchange for the work they did. At night, Lorang's mother calls him and, as usual, scolds him and compares him to his brother. So Lorang sits alone, feeling upset. At that moment, Zizi comes to sit next to him, bringing him ice cream, and Lorang tells her about his mother's call. Zizi tells him that she has never seen his brother and doesn't know him, but despite that, Lorang is 1,000,000 times better, smarter, and more skilled than him. She tells him that, to her, he is the most wonderful person in the world. Of course, Lorang is very happy with her words, feeling shy and not knowing what to say. The next day, they attend the music festival and have a great time together, dancing and singing all day. After their trip ends, they return to their schools as usual. One day, they receive gifts from Shen, and Pierrot is surprised that he sent gifts to the whole group except for Gia. Of course, Gia gets very upset, and Goran feels sad for her sadness. So he asks Chen why he didn't get her a gift, and he replies that he doesn't know her taste in gifts. He then asks Goran to choose a gift for her based on his taste and give it to her as if it were from Chen. The next day, Goran goes around all the gift shops until he finds an elegant gift for her and gives it to her. Gia is very happy and thinks the gift is from Chen, and Goran doesn't tell her the truth so as not to break her heart. The next day, we see Zizi sitting and studying with Lorang as usual, and by coincidence, their bullying classmate sees them. She takes a picture and shows it to the teachers, who then summon them and scold them because it is forbidden in the school for a boy and a girl to sit alone in the classroom. But Lorang defends Zizi, saying that they weren't doing anything wrong and were just studying together, which significantly improved their academic performance. The next day, Lorang's mother arrives at the school after the principal calls her and informs her of what her son did. As usual, she keeps yelling at him and scolding him, and she decides to punish him by transferring him to another school. He hears these words, gets very upset, and starts treating Zizi coldly because he doesn't know how to tell her that he is leaving and going to another school. By coincidence, Zizi overhears some students talking about her, saying that she is always clinging to Lorang everywhere he goes, and that she will be the reason for his academic failure. Zizi gets very upset and decides to stay away from Lorang. The next day at school, she avoids talking to him or sitting next to him. She then finds out by chance that he told the whole group about his transfer to the new school, but didn't tell her. So at night, Zizi goes to meet him, confronts him with everything she learned, and tells him that she feels like she has become a burden to him and has caused him many problems, so she will completely stay away from him. The next day, Lorang sees her sitting in a restaurant with a strange young man. He gets very upset, storms into the restaurant angrily, and tries to take her away by force, but she refuses to go with him and leaves with the young man. Later, we find out that the young man is her cousin, and they grew up together like siblings. When Lorang realizes that the guy is her relative, he feels relieved and later goes to apologize to her for the way he acted. He understands that she was never a burden to him, so Zizi decides to forgive him and tells him that she will miss him very much when he moves. The next day, they are surprised to find that Luli, Lorang's younger brother, will be staying with him for a few days. Lorang gets very annoyed because his parents always favor his brother over him, and this has created a huge gap between him and his brother. However, Luli tries in every way to get closer to his brother and suggests that they play chess together. Lorang agrees and plays with him, but at that moment, their parents arrive home and start yelling at Lorang, accusing him of distracting his younger brother from studying and making him a failure like himself. But Luli defends his older brother, explaining to their parents that Lorang has done nothing wrong and asks them to stop blaming him for everything. That night, They are shocked to discover that Luli has run away from home. Lorang quickly goes out to search for him everywhere, and by coincidence runs into Zizi. She joins him in the search until they find Luli sitting alone. She sits next to him and asks him to talk about what's bothering him. Luli tells her that he misses his brother a lot and the closeness they had when they were kids. But what happened was that their mother started treating them differently, always favoring him over Lorang, which caused Lorang to develop emotional trauma and distance himself, even though it wasn't his fault. That night, Zizi tells Lorang all the wonderful things his brother said about him. From that moment on, the brothers' relationship improves and they become closer again. Later, Luli sends a message to Zizi, thanking her for everything she did because, thanks to her, he and his brother are now on good terms again. 2 days later, it is Zizi's birthday, and the whole group goes to a gift shop to pick a present for her. Goran notices that Gia is interested in a particular bracelet in the store, so he secretly decides to buy it for her without her noticing. Later, he gives her the bracelet, and she becomes very happy. She then asks him if he likes her because there is no reason for him to buy her the bracelet unless he has feelings for her. Goran becomes very nervous, completely denies liking her, and even says that she isn't his type at all. The next day at school, Professor Lin asks Zizi to come help him with something. Zizi feels disappointed because today is her birthday, and her friends had planned a surprise for her. But of course, she can't refuse her teacher's request. After finishing with him, she sends a message to her friends telling them to postpone the celebration for another day. However, they refuse and ask her to come home. When she arrives at her house, she finds them all waiting for her with a cake, and they start celebrating her birthday. After the celebration, Zizi goes up to her apartment, but then she receives a call from Lorang asking her to come downstairs. She goes down to see what's going on and finds that he brought her a special gift. She opens it and finds a camera. Of course, Zizi is overjoyed because she loves photography. The next day, Lorang transfers to his new school, but stays in constant contact with Zizi, telling her everything that happens in his day, and she also keeps in touch with him daily, missing him a lot. Then comes the day when the students have to decide their university majors. Each of the group members knows which college they want to enter, except for Gia, who is unsure about what she wants. So Pierrot sits with her and tells Gia about all the talents she has and all the subjects she excels in to help her find a suitable college. Gia feels very comfortable talking to him because she finally realizes what she wants. She decides to choose journalism as her major. Final exams begin, which will determine which colleges they can get into. Zizi wants to go to the same college as Lorang, but the problem is that this university only accepts students with high grades in all subjects. So Zizi applies to another university as a backup. Then the day of the school's graduation ceremony arrives, and Zizi is very sad that Lorang isn't there with her. But when she looks behind her, she finds him standing right in front of her. She is overjoyed and asks why he came. He tells her that he wanted to see her graduate. After the ceremony, Fang learns that his grandmother has been admitted to the hospital in critical condition. He rushes there immediately, and all his friends go with him. They stay with him all day until his grandmother comes out of surgery, and he is relieved that she is okay. At night, Lorang asks Zizi if she would like to go out with him alone. When she gets home, she sits with Gia to plan how she will confess her feelings to Lorang. The next day, Zizi meets Lorang and keeps trying to hint at her love for him, but something keeps interrupting her plan each time. However, Lorang understands exactly what she is trying to do. He gets tired of all her indirect hints and confesses his love for her for the first time. He holds her hand the entire way back home, and of course, Zizi can't believe how happy she is. At the same time, Goran runs into Gia by chance and wants to confess his love for her, but he overhears her talking to her friends. She tells them that she would never date one of her friends because if the relationship fails, she would lose their friendship forever. The next day, university entrance exam results are released. Zizi scores high enough to get into the same university as Lorang. She rushes to tell him the good news, ecstatic. Lorang decides to take her camping the next day to celebrate this happy occasion. But the next day, they are surprised when Goran, Fang, and Gia show up to join them. However, Gia reassures her friend that she only came to keep Fang and Goran away from them so they can enjoy their time together. That night, Goran tells Gia that he has decided to study medicine abroad. Gia is shocked, and it's clear she doesn't want him to leave. The next day, everyone leaves for their respective universities. Zizi feels lost and doesn't know where to go until she meets a young man named Linan, who helps her find the girls' dormitory. It is obvious that Linan has fallen for her at first sight. The next day, during military training, the commander asks Linan to train Zizi. Of course, Lorang is annoyed because he notices that Linan is interested in her. When Zizi returns to the dormitory, she finds all the girls looking at Lorang's picture and debating who will be able to make him fall for them. Zizi challenges them, saying she will win the bet, but she doesn't tell them that they are already dating. After she wins the bet, she finally confesses that they are actually a couple. The girls are completely shocked and ask her to tell them how they met. Zizi tells them about the first time she saw him in the supermarket and how she has been in love with him ever since. She continues to tell them about all the moments they shared in school. The next day, Zizi is late for her lecture. When the professor takes attendance, Linan answers in a woman's voice, pretending to be Zizi. Lorang gets very annoyed and jealous of Linan. That night, Lorang has an important presentation and asks Zizi to bring him the flash drive he gave her in the morning. But Zizi accidentally gives him the wrong flash drive. When he plays it, he finds videos of himself that Zizi secretly recorded before they confess their love to each other. Of course, Zizi is extremely embarrassed and wants to stop the video, but Lorang enjoys watching it. When he returns to the dorm, he keeps watching the video all night. This is how the entire university finds out they are dating. The whole class notices Linan's excessive attention towards Zizi. They also notice that every time he tries to get close to her, she pushes him away because she is already in love with someone else and would never look at another guy. The next day, Lorang is assigned as the college supervisor, and a girl from his class named Chu joins him. We learn that Chu likes him and intentionally included him in her team to work on the project together. One day, Zizi is shocked when she finds a picture of Chu and Lorang posted on Chu's account. However, she discovers that the original picture actually included all the students in their class, but Chu deliberately cropped it to make it seem like it was just the two of them. Zizi gets upset with Chu and asks her to respect herself and stop what she is doing because Lorang is in a relationship with her and would never look at another girl. When Lorang finds out what happened, he is happy and even posts a picture of Zizi, writing that she is his girlfriend. After some time, their vacation arrives and they prepare to return to their homes to spend time with their families. That night, Zizi arrives in front of her house with Lorang and hugs him before going inside. At that moment, her family sees her hugging a strange guy, and they are about to get angry and possibly hit them. But when they realize it's Lorang, they welcome him warmly and invite him inside. They also tell him that they approve of their relationship. Later, they visit Professor Lin to inform him about their relationship. Professor Lin thanks Zizi for bringing a smile back to Lorang's face and tells her that he couldn't find a better girl for Lorang than her. Years pass and we see that each of them has successfully graduated. Despite being in different places, their group of friends is still in touch. After graduation, Lorang surprises Zizi with a house of their own. Later, she finds a job in translation since she has always been excellent in English. As for Lorang, he becomes an aerospace engineer and succeeds in his career. After some time, Joran returns to China, and the entire group reunites, spending a beautiful day together just like old times. One day they attend a party where all their high school friends are present. At this moment, Joran finally decides to confess his love to Gia. It turns out that she has liked him for a long time too, but was afraid to tell him. At last, they become a couple. One day, Zizi goes to attend an important presentation by Lorang, where he unveils a drone aircraft that is different from anything currently on the market. When asked about what motivated him to reach this level, Lorang answers that his girlfriend Zizi is the reason. Afterward, Lorang takes Zizi to a private place and proposes to her. Of course, she is overjoyed and immediately says yes. Later, they have a beautiful wedding with all their friends in attendance. Sometime after their marriage, Zizi surprises Lorang by telling him that she is pregnant. He is overwhelmed with happiness and tells her that this is the best news he has ever heard. And just like that, their love story wasn't just a school romance, it was forever. Hope you guys enjoyed this recap. I'm excited to bring you more of them, so please subscribe and like this video for more content. See you on the next one.